Morning. Good morning, dear students. I am Revan Siddhappa MB, Assistant Professor of English, Government First Grade College, Namati, Davanagere District. It is prescribed for BA degree program, optional English, 6th semester. It is an elective paper, paper number 9, 20th century literatures first, and this is the 16th session, session number 16. The topic is W.H. Auden's poem Musée de Beaux Arts. And these are the objectives and outcomes of this session expected. To enable students to understand the background of the poem Musée de Beaux Arts is the major objective, learning objective. And the session outcomes are like this. Students will be able to understand the themes of the poem. And the second session outcome will be the students will understand the 3 vignettes of the Old Masters Museum. These are the session outcomes. Let us have a recapitulation. Dear students, during the last 3 sessions, you have studied another important poem by W.H. Auden, that was The Shield of Achilles. The Shield of Achilles is a wonderful poem, and it uses an episode from a Greek epic of Homer's Iliad, in which the mother Thetis had ordered Hephaestus to make a shield for her son, that was Achilles, and he had engraved some of the pictures on the shield of Achilles, and the pictures she ordered and the pictures he engraved are quite different. They are quite different. And after completing his work, Hephaestus went away without speaking a single word, and ultimately she cried out that even though she had prepared such a wonderful shield, it will fail to save the life of her son Achilles. And that is the poem you have studied during the last 3 sessions. Now let us come directly for this poem. Before going to discuss this poem, let us have a brief revision of the introduction to the poet, because we have already discussed something about the biography of the poet during the last session also. His full name was Winston Hugh Auden. He was born in York, England, 1907. He was basically a playwright, poet, and also an author. He was the leader of the so-called Oxford poets. He was the leader of the so-called Oxford poets, and he had committed to social and political issues. In 1939, he moved to New York. New York is a city in United States of America. And he was influenced by 2 important writers. Number 1 is Sigmund Freud, and the second one is Karl Marx. Dear students, being a literature students, you might have heard these 2 names while studying the theories, literary theories, in which you come across Sigmund Freud was famous for his psychoanalytic theory, whereas Karl Marx is noted for his Marxist theory. Okay, see, both of them have influenced W.H. Auden, and hence you are going to see some what we call streams of his understanding of these theoreticians in his works also. However, he became the citizen of USA in 1946. I would like to make you remember one more important writer that you have studied, that is T.S. Eliot. T.S. Eliot was born in America, and he went to England, and ultimately he got the citizenship of England and stayed throughout his life there in it. But however, here W.H. Auden was born in England. After traveling some different countries, ultimately he came to New York and he got the citizenship of America in 1946 and he stayed here. See, these two important writers of the 20th century are prescribed for you to study. Both of them are poets and both of them are also playwrights, dramatists. Fine, he was elected as the professor of poetry at Oxford in 1956. And this is a brief introduction about the author. Now let me tell you something about the major concerns or the themes of his poems, dramas, like that. Sorrow is one of the major themes of his writings. The relationship between man and nature, alienation, love, death, transgression and renewal, these are all the major themes of the writer W.H. Auden. And however, he died in or passed away in 1973. And these are his famous literary works. Let us see. His collection of poems were published in 1928. Doom is Dark is another poem. Sir, No Man's Enemy, another poem. This Lunar Beauty, another poem. Look Stranger, 1936, it was another poem. Tell Me the Truth About Love, another important poem. Another Time, published in 1940. Musée de Beaux Arts. It is a wonderful poem that is being prescribed for you to study in this semester. In memory of W.B. Yeats, The Unknown Citizen, Law Like Love, these are all the important poems of this author. September 1st, 1939, so another important poem. And in memory of Sigmund Freud, this is another important poem. The Double Man is also a poem written by him. These are all the poems, and let us go for the plays composed by him. Paid on Both Sides, it was published in 1928. Verse drama, and its title is The Dance of Death, it was published in 1933. The Dog Beneath the Skin, it was published in 1935. The Ascent of F6, it is another important drama by him, it was published in 1937. Funeral Blues is another work of him. On the Frontier, these are all the different literary works composed or written by W.H. Auden. So let us go for the brief introduction or the background to this poem. It was published under the title Palaces de Beaux Arts. It means to say Museum of Fine Arts, in spring 1939. Dear students, before composing this poem, the author or the poet W.H. Auden had been to the museum, Royal Museum of Fine Arts. It is in Brussels of Belgium. He visited personally this museum and he had seen the paintings there. Of course, it contains number of paintings, but he was influenced by three of the paintings by the old masters. See, old masters are the old artists before 19th century. Okay, before 19th century artists, they belong to Belgian, Netherlands and Flemish artists of the from 15th century till 18th century. They are called old masters. They were the classical painters. Okay, they were the classical artists. And Old Masters Museum is a part of the Musée Royaux des Beaux Arts de Belgique, or the Royal Museums of Fine Arts in Brussels, Belgium. See, Royal Museums of Fine Arts is the big, what we call, museum, in which Old Masters Museum is one part of it. In this poem as a whole, the poet W.H. Auden refers to the Old Masters Museum's three paintings. Old Masters Museum's three paintings, and Old Masters Museum is a part of Royal Museums of Fine Arts in Brussels, Belgium. Okay, so he picks up the three paintings there in that museum, and he goes on commenting upon the human suffering. Human suffering is everywhere. Human suffering is across the time. Human suffering is across the geographical areas. You mean to say it has not left any land. That is the thing here. And since Greek time till today, there is the suffering. The artists have seen this suffering first handed. So that is being shown through these three important and classical paintings that you are going to see. Okay, dear students, W.H. Auden had spent 6 months in China during the Sino-Japanese War. Look at this thing. He spent 6 months there in China during Sino-Japanese War, and he had seen the suffering of the soldiers and also the civilians in that war, in that Sino-Japanese War. Dear students, he was a leftist. Being a leftist, he went to Spain during the Spanish Civil War to support the Republican government or the Republicans. He went there to Spain and he had supported the republics by being the leftist. And during that time, Germany, that is the Nazi government, you know that the person, Nazis government, autocratical government, dictatorship kind of government, that attacked Austria in 1938. He had seen there also, he had seen violence, bloodshed, death, suffering, and all those things. Okay, and he had seen all these incidents apart from his visit to the museum. Don't forget that museum, because it is very important for you to understand this poem. And he had witnessed historic episodes of violence. Look at this thing. He had seen these historical episodes of violence, the war and its aftermaths, and the merciless killings of the people, suffering of the ordinary man, like that. And it had some moral implications also. And he had observed human suffering first-handed, irrespective of the paintings or in the real life, like these wars and battles. And the people, for the suffering of other people, are totally indifferent. This is the major theme of the poem. Based on this line, you need to understand the poem as a whole. Now let me read out the text that I am going to discuss in this session. And this session is purely meant for the first painting of the Old Masters Museum, and the rest of the two paintings will be discussed in the next session, session number 17. Musée des Beaux Arts, W.H. Auden. It is the French phrase Musée des Beaux Arts. It means Museum of Fine Arts. This is the English translation by W.H. Auden. Text. About suffering, they were never wrong. The old masters, how well they understood its human position, how it takes place while someone else is eating or opening a window or just walking dully along. How, when the aged are reverently, passionately waiting for the miraculous birth, there always must be children who did not specially want it to happen, skating on the pond at the edge of the wood. So in this session I am going to explain this poem. Okay, so in this particular part of the poem, first stanza of the poem, you must understand the miraculous birth. Miraculous birth is the painting. It is related to the census at Bethlehem, the numbering at Bethlehem. See, you know that miraculous birth is related to Jesus Christ's birth, and and his mother, Virgin Mary, along with her husband Joseph, came to Bethlehem to register their names in the census list. See, during that time, so here is the picture. Now let me show you. See, there is the horse on which she is riding, and Joseph is holding that horse, and she was wearing the blue veil. Okay, and this is the major concern. She is going to beget uh, Jesus Christ, who is born of God. She is virgin. Okay, so the people are indifferent for such happenings, but they are immersed in their own activities. Okay, so the birth of Jesus Christ will lead to the another important incident or the event, but the people are not aware of those things, and that he is going to concentrate. The people are scattered, they are immersed in doing their own work, and the students, some children are playing, and the old people are actually reverently waiting for the birth of Jesus Christ. Okay, so that is the thing. So the census or the numbering at Bethlehem, it is the painting painted by Peter Bruegel the elder. Dear students, you must know there are two paintings by the same artist, that is Peter Bruegel the elder, and another painting is there, the massacre painting. See, that is related to the Bruegel the younger. Okay, by picking up these three paintings, he tries to tell us the things of human suffering. It is everywhere, and the people are negligent of other suffering that is being shown. Okay, dear students, this poem uses the technique called ekphrasis. It means to say it uses the detailed description of work of visual art as a literary device. See, there are three paintings. By making use of those paintings, this poem is being composed, and he goes on describing those works of arts, and such poems are called ekphrasis. Remember, this poem is written in free verse. Free verse is poetry that does not rhyme or have a regular rhythm, and such poems are called as free verse. And in this poem as a whole, we come to know that conversational style is there. So one person is the speaker is speaking up each and everything, and how conversation takes place in the same way this poem is being narrated. The speaker of the poem is either the poet or the visitor to the museum, Old Masters Museum. He is the speaker. By looking at the paintings by Peter Bruegel, the elder and the younger, he goes on commenting upon it. And he is focusing not on the important events. Look at this thing. And the people are indifferent for the sufferings of others. That he tries to convince and tell us in all the three paintings. And we come to know that universal indifference to human suffering, misfortune. People are indifferent for the human suffering. And suffering, according to the old masters of the before the 19th century great artists, it is a common phenomenon. They know they are right. They are right in understanding the human. The very first line of the poem is like that. About suffering, they were never wrong. Look at this thing. They were always right. It means to say they were always right about this suffering. How well they understood its human position. See, human suffering is better understood by the artists. Artists from 15th century till 18th century artists know the human suffering and human condition very well, and their conception is absolutely right. while someone else is eating or opening the window or just walking dully along. Look at this thing, the poem goes on like that. See, miraculous birth is referred in this poem is referring to biblical allusion. It is a reference to a biblical allusion. The numbering at Bethlehem, okay, or the census at Bethlehem, it is the painting by Bruegel the Elder, Flemish Renaissance artist. He was the Flemish Renaissance artist. See, in that picture as a whole, he says, Virgin Mary rides a donkey and wears a blue veil with Joseph leading, but the speaker does not focus on this image. Instead, attention is drawn to individual figure who, if one looks closely, can be spotted opening window, huddling in tavern-like structure, skating on the pond, and so on. Look at this thing. When such great person is arriving for registering their names in the census, the people are negligent. The people are not aware. The people do not know. See, the world people are actually awaiting for the birth of such miraculous birth, but for uh, the children who are negligent of such an event, and they like to play games, skate on the pond by the wooden area or the area which is covered by the trees. That is what is being said in this stanza. Thank you for watching.